This Pokemon is obsessed with becoming stronger and gaining more power. Now, is this for selfish reasons, or does it aim to fight the darkness that threatens the land? This is the Pokemon Kommo-o. In the Alolan region, the scaly dragon Pokemon starts its life as Jangmo-o. They spend majority of their lives, or at least at this point, congregating with other Jangmo-o, living in the Badlands or deep within the vast Pony Canyon, far away from human settlements or even other Pokemon. But why the seclusion? Why isolate from other Pokemon? Wouldn't that make hunting and finding resources incredibly difficult? The answer is yes. Which is the reason these creatures are opportunistic omnivores, hunting smaller Pokemon and being perfectly content eating berries or leaves. Even if those berries and leaves are rare, they do live in the Badlands. But this brings me back to my original question: why live there? Jangmo-o are diligent warriors, spending hours upon hours battling each other, mastering their craft of fighting, never missing an opportunity to hone their skills, even giving it their all during their sparring sessions and practice bouts. With the heart of a warrior, they will never turn their backs to their foe, facing them with honor and always remaining humble about their fighting prowess. By utilizing their scales, which recent scientific findings have uncovered are actually hardened fur, not reptilian scales, implications of which have yet to be explored, they express emotions in battle as well as communicate with others. Young Jangmo-o will clang their scales together, building camaraderie and strength with each other, or to intimidate opponents. The scales would create a unique metallic jingling sound when smashed against hard objects. This also makes their habitat incredibly noisy. I wonder if that is another reason why they live in isolation. They seem like respectable and concerned creatures. Maybe they didn't want to disrupt all the living creatures as they trained. Also, if they were prey for another stronger Pokemon, all that noise would make them easy targets. So what would the solution be? Get your hardened-ass scales into the Badlands. But believe it or not, travelers are still able to hear Jangmo-o in the wild long before being able to actually spot them. Ancient tribes would collect the scales of Jangmo-o and fashion war instruments out of them. There was a belief that ringing those scales would ensure that their warriors would fight bravely and valiantly. Anthropological excavations suggest that Jangmo-o were common battle partners for military combatants of the ancient Alolan society. Jangmo-o are based on lizards and dragons, and possibly an ankylosaur, dinosaurs who had armored plates around their bodies. Its name also implies it's based on the mo-o, a shape-shifting lizard spirit in Hawaiian mythology. It's revered as Aumakua, which is a personal or family god, and mo-o are black, serpentine, shape-shifting creatures, almost always female, who watch over Hawaiian families and bring prosperity to those families, generally in the form of rain, as they do have the ability to influence and control weather. And they're doing that most of the time, at least when they're not transforming into beautiful women in order to seduce and devour men. The scales located on Jangmo-o's back look very similar to the Leomano Club, one of the most famous clubs in Hawaiian culture. Jangmo-o comes from jangling or jangle, a ringing metallic noise, and mo-o, Hawaiian for lizard or dragon. With the first evolution occurring at level 35, the once isolated social Jangmo-o has become the lone wolf Hakamo-o. Upon evolving, Hakamo-o make the decision to leave their families to focus on their training, showing a devotion and dedication to their craft not commonly seen in other creatures. Not only are they constantly training on their own, but they will journey across the canyon in search of opponents and worthy rivals. When it finds an adversary, it would clang its scales and dance around ferociously as a display of strength and power. This ferocious dance climaxes as Hakamo-o let loose an intimidating war cry, indicating to the foe that it wants to throw hands. Because these scales or hardened fur serve as armor, Hakamo-o takes a fairly reckless approach to battling, attempting to overwhelm its opponents with attacks, taking advantage of its dragon fighting dual typing and incredibly powerful and sharp claws used to dismember or KO the foe. This approach to tank hits is further reinforced by their abilities Bulletproof, which protect the Mon from ball or bomb moves, Soundproof, making the Pokemon immune to sound-based moves, and Overcoat, protecting the Mon from the effects of weather in addition to the effects of powder or spore moves depending on the generation you're playing. This battle style does result in several of their scales and plates to be torn off, shattered, and broken. However, Hakamo-o considers its broken armor and bare arms as proof of an absolutely spectacular battle, wearing them with pride. Similar to a Saiyan that recovers from their injuries, the scales of a Hakamo-o immediately begin to grow back and will come back stronger and harder than ever. These scales are fantastic conductors of heat, hence in traditional Alolan smithery, they are molded into various weapons and armors as well as primitive pots and pans for cooking. Nothing like the lovely faint taste of battle-tested Hakamo-o to really enrich the flavor of your dishes. Now, Hakamo-o appears to be based on various lizards and dragons and dinosaurs such as theropods and the Ankylosaurus, the latter of which has that armor plating. They also resemble tribal warriors, and Hakamo-o's ritual war cries prior to confronting an opponent seems to allude to Haka, the war dances by Polynesian warriors. And with the ability for those scales or hardened fur to produce sounds, this may be a reference to cymbals and castanets. And their names are going to be a combination of Haka, which I mentioned is a type of war dance that's present across certain Polynesian cultures, and Mo-o, which is Hawaiian for lizard or dragon. Once Hakamo-o have battled with enough opponents and obtained a certain power level, their transformation into the pseudo-legendary Kommo-o takes place, or it will reach its final form of power at level 45. Their goal of training and mastering their combat skills is now complete. Their new goal is to return to their birthplace to watch over and protect Jangmo-o that are just starting their training journey. But just like Obi-Wan watching over Luke Skywalker, Kommo-o complete their surveillance from afar, only intervening when a natural disaster, dangerous situation, or sinister threat threatens the well-being of the Jangmo-o. As these creatures are extremely territorial, they will even prevent traveling humans from getting too close. The power possessed in a single uppercut is frightening. If it lands, the foe will blast off at the speed of light. Even the simple act of raising its arm can generate enough force to change the landscape. Their scales are used both for offensive and defensive purposes, and because of their versatility, the scales, the ancient Alolan warriors would don armor made almost entirely of Kommo-o scales. And this is per paintings found in some Pony Island ruins. What makes Kommo-o even more intimidating is how it moves. Yes, it is capable for bipedal locomotion. It vastly prefers to walk and run around by knuckle walking like a gorilla. So badass. Kommo-o do not want to abuse this power. They have no desire to fight weak foes, so it will clang its hardened fur together when it senses someone approaching, alerting others of its presence, unnerving weak foes, causing them to turn tail and run. Or Kommo-o will swing their tail scales to threaten any enemies they see. Now those that stay are communicating they are strong and willing to take on the challenge of battling Kommo-o. They must not know that Kommo-o are capable of learning moves such as clanging scales and clangorous soul, and that Kommo-o is the only Pokemon able to use the Z move clangorous soul blaze. It has the abilities I mentioned with Hakamo-o as well: bulletproof, soundproof, and overcoat. Additionally, they're able to use incredibly strong moves like Outrage, Close Combat, and Poison Jab for those pesky fairy types. And once it delivers the final blow, Kommo-o will let out a victory howl, and the victor will bask in the applause of the spectator Kommo-o as they create a metallic celebration sound with their scales. According to legend, the glittering scales of Kommo-o are meant to drive away a great darkness, and the main reason it seeks strong opponents so obsessively is because they are on a quest for power to defeat the darkness. Now this makes sense, as there's a theme of light and dark in Generation 7, notably in Ultra Sun Ultra Moon with the involvement of Ultra Necrozma, a light-devouring monster. The legend of Kommo-o can be interpreted as it has a special role in fighting these Ultra Beasts in the Alolan region alongside the 4 Tapu. Whatever threat emerged from the darkness or Ultra Wormholes was met by this team of legends. Additionally, it is important to note that Kommo-o is the only totem Pokemon in the Alolan trials without a captain, and this trial was in the Vast Pony Canyon trial. This Kommo-o possesses the Z power, an energy that originates from Ultra Wormholes and takes the form of a golden flaring aura. Your reward for defeating this unit of a pseudo-legendary totem Pokemon: the Dragonium Z Crystal. Similar to the pre-evolved forms, Kommo-o shares the lizard, dragon, tribal warrior, dinosaur inspirations, and the Mo-o of Hawaiian mythology. There might be an added inspiration from a monk. Their tails closely resemble the Kakara, a monk's staff, and has very similar function. And again, the noise that it produces with the scales has a connection to cymbals and castanets. And their noses, or snout, share a strong resemblance to a hatchet. And finally, don't Kommo-o look a lot like the pangolin? Isn't that thing adorable? Now, Kommo-o, the name may be a combination of commotion in reference to all the noises that it produces, Mo-o, Hawaiian for lizard or dragon. It may also incorporate combat, commander, Komodo, as in the Komodo dragon, and finally Kommo-o may be based off Kokomo, Hawaii, a community on the island of Maui. And there we have the entire history, well, maybe not the entire history, but information of the entire evolution line of Kommo-o. Now, I made the claim that it was forgettable. Now, did that change? The answer is no. Overall, I do think that Kommo-o are commonly overlooked. This could be because of competitive reasons. I know, especially with its stats, they aren't as impressive as other pseudo-legendary Pokemons, the attack stat specifically. It's kind of there. Now, that doesn't mean, especially after doing all this research, that it's not a really cool Pokemon. I think it is awesome. I love the lore about it fighting alongside the 4 Tapu, and also I like the design, and to be honest, I kind of like the more flamboyant and outrageous shiny form. So just because I say it's forgettable, that does not mean that it is a loser of any kind. I still find it to be a very solid Pokemon. I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're down there, let me know which Pokemon you want to see next. Thank you for all the support you give to the channel, and check out some of our other videos, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace!